Welcome back to Literal BS. I'm your host, Rob. This episode is about the Texas flood that took place on the 4th of July, 2025 and its horrific tragedy. Over 100 lives lost. Communities devastated by a pitch-black wall of death, as one survivor described it. But this wasn't just nature's fury. This was a man-made catastrophe built on unheeded warnings, bureaucratic paralysis, and a chilling lack of preparedness. Today, we directly confront how local, state, and federal governments utterly failed the victims of this disaster. We'll expose the decisions, the budget cuts, and the inaction that turned a severe weather event into a preventable massacre. And critically, we'll lay out precisely what must be done to ensure this never happens again. So let's get started. The National Weather Service issued timely, urgent warnings that night. But for those in harm's way, those warnings often never arrived. This was the catastrophic last-mile failure. Despite being in flash flood alley, Kerr County had no county-wide flood warning sirens. This wasn't an oversight. Local officials had rejected proposals for a siren system back in 2017 as too expensive. They also failed to effectively use the FEMA wireless emergency alert system, leaving countless residents, especially those with poor cell service in rural areas, completely in the dark. Critical flood gauges were insufficient, and local leadership had even voted against federal ARPA funds that could have funded these very systems. Texas lawmakers carry heavy responsibility. Just months before this disaster, House Bill 13, a bipartisan effort to strengthen statewide emergency communication networks and warning systems, including sirens, passed the House but was allowed to die in the Senate. This was a direct refusal to address a known vulnerability, leaving communities exposed. The state also repeatedly passed over Kerr County's requests for hazard mitigation funding, citing bureaucratic hurdles or diverting funds elsewhere. At the federal level, the very agencies meant to protect us were weakened. The Donald administration's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE initiative, saw hundreds of positions cut from the National Weather Service. This led to a brain drain of experienced meteorologists and critical vacancies in offices like the one covering Kerr County, directly impacting the ability to coordinate last-mile warnings. The Federal Emergency Management Agency's, or FEMA, response was also critically hampered. A new DHS cost control policy forced all FEMA contracts over $100,000 to require direct approval from DHS Secretary Christie, causing devastating delays in deploying rescue teams and resources. And shockingly, FEMA's disaster assistance call centers failed to answer nearly two-thirds of calls immediately after the flood, due to the abrupt termination of hundreds of contractor agreements. This left desperate survivors without vital aid and information. Even FEMA's flood maps were inadequate, often failing to accurately reflect flash flood risks or account for climate change, giving a false sense of security. The picture is undeniable. A tragic alignment of extreme weather with systemic governmental failures. From local resistance to state legislative inaction, to federal budget cuts and bureaucratic roadblocks, the path to tragedy was paved by choices, not just by rain. So what could have been done? And more importantly, what must be done now to prevent this from happening again? This is non-negotiable. Every high-risk community needs comprehensive, modern flood warning systems, county-wide sirens, real-time river gauges, and effective use of mobile phone alerts. Local officials must prioritize lives over perceived costs. Reverse the NWS staffing cuts. Ensure FEMA is fully funded, fully staffed, and free from any bureaucratic policies that delay rapid disaster response. Expertise must be valued, not cut. States must pass legislation that mandates and funds emergency communication infrastructure. Hazard mitigation plans should be current, enforced, and tied to funding. We need to shift from reacting to disasters to actively preventing them. FEMA and other agencies must update flood maps to accurately reflect flash flood risk and incorporate climate change projections, giving communities a realistic view of their vulnerability. Lines of communication between federal, state, and local emergency management must be seamless, ensuring warnings from meteorologists translate into immediate, life-saving action on the ground. The Texas flood was a preventable tragedy. The victims were not warned because the systems meant to protect them were neglected, underfunded, or actively undermined. This is not just a call for better weather forecasting. It's a demand for better governance, for accountability, and for a fundamental shift in how we prepare for and respond to disasters in an increasingly volatile world. We, the public, have a crucial role to play. Hold your elected officials accountable. Demand that they prioritize the safety of their citizens. Insist on investment in the infrastructure that saves lives. Let's be clear, the money is there, but people are not a priority until it's time for an election. The resources exist, we're just choosing not to use them for flood protection. Kerr County passed on flood warning systems while spending $10 million in federal ARPA funds elsewhere. Meanwhile, Texas has poured nearly $20 billion into border security since 2021, and Congress just approved tens of billions more for immigration enforcement, ICE expansion, and new detention facilities. These are not small sums. These are staggering investments in enforcement, in detention, in control, while vital preventative safety measures for American citizens are starved, ignored, or simply fall by the wayside. We must challenge these distorted priorities. Insist that our elected officials invest in our safety, our resilience, our lives, not just in areas that serve a political agenda. We must ensure that the agony of Kerr County becomes the catalyst for change, not just another forgotten headline. Thank you for joining me on Literal BS. This is Rob, and this was my 2 cents on this matter. See you next time.